It's time to talk to the elderly. Hello everyone, it's me, DeoGenZ, and as we bump around those old fools in our way, we try to find Egan's friend. Senelor, which is like senior, but with an L in there. Oh great, he's getting forgetful. Was that not him? He just did forget something. Alright. So, we don't actually talk to... So, no, this guy is. This is Senelor. I thought the first dude who was talking to the Wobbuffet was Senelor. So, apparently, the Relic Stone, which we saw in last episode, has some mystical powers. It's not going to work to bring back your youth as much as you would like it to there, Senelor. But what it can do is relinquish the darkness in Pokemon's hearts everywhere. Not everywhere. Only to Pokemon that we take there that we had already worked on opening their hearts for. And that's the only ones it'll help. And let's see, now that we talked to Senelor, if Grandma's found the stone. I love that her name is Black. I couldn't have thought of, like, I don't know, Grandma, I don't know. Grandma Poke Lady? Just blech. Why that name? A heart imprisoned by shadows. Its last door shall be opened by the power within. The relic must have some effect on shadow Pokemon. I will leave that for you to determine. Yeah, that's kind of why I was telling my viewers, because I already know you elderly peoples are useless. Last episode we had to spend trying to protect all you old fogies. But before we run off to the Relic Stone, so I can show you purification, let's check our emails. It's an emergency. Oh boy. DeoGenZ, we've got big trouble. Just got word from our people that Mount Battle's under attack by a mysterious group of thugs. Please can you go help? We think it's the same group as the one that Mirror B is involved in. Alright. More of Mirror B's clowns yucking it up at the battle... Or the Battle Mountains? Mount Battle? Yeah. Pfft, derp. Battle Mountain? No, Mount Battle. So it's to the northeast of this village. And that's where we will be going next. That is, of course, after I show you the power of the Relic Stone. It is righteous. So, by talking to Egan and all the elderly folks around Agate or Agate village, I like Agate, sounds more, I don't know, fancy. You glean the fact that you have to get the final lock undone by this stone. And no, we didn't get the Ian file. So let's read it. I'm curious about this. Ooh, Celebi's power. How appropriate. The purification of Shadow Pokemon has several factors. Celebi appears to have the power of purification. If Shadow Pokemon encounter a Celebi, it recalls how its heart was before closed. Relic Stone of Agate Village also appears to have this power. These factors must be eliminated if our Shadow Pokemon plan is to commence or continue. So, with Celebi, yeah, Celebi does show up in the game, but I'm going to leave that till later to really explain what Celebi does. So, surprises in the future. But, as the Ian file clearly stated, as if we couldn't get the idea from the elderly that once the final lock needs to be undone, which you can tell that all by looking at their stats, by looking at the Pokemon on your team or in your box to see if they're close to purification, then you know, you can tell, especially if you go up to the Relic Stone itself and those little green flecks come off of it. It's time to purify. But I recommend you keep track, know very well how your Shadow Pokemon are doing on their meter, because you're wasting your own time and experience and Shadow desalinization methods, if you will, for other Shadow Pokes. Ooh! If you waste it on one that's ready to be purified. Aw, who's a badass now? Flaffy, who is now Ampharos. Fantastic. See, everything that your Pokemon has done with you, although it didn't show immediately, has been stored. So experience points that boost up enough level to make your Pokemon evolve will do so. Let's see, Noctowl's ready to go. Yes, he is. And if you try to select a Pokemon whose heart is not at the last stages of needing purification, meaning that its bar is pretty much completely depleted, it will say so. And it will be like, that's not the Pokemon that's ready to be purified. Go back and select the other one. So now we're going to swap up our roster here. Go get the other pokes that need purification, and then we will be on our way to Mount Battle. But this is a beautiful thing, and I recommend that you don't get too up on your high horse of trying to be the hero of this story and rush right off to Mount Battle when you get that email, because if you do, you wouldn't have had any time to check out the Relic Stone and make your Shadow Pokes more powerful than they are currently. Because a Shadow Pokemon that is at its last level of Shadow Meter, meaning it's pretty much ready to be unlocked, it's such a waste to have that be a Shadow Pokemon on the off chance that it'll go into Hyper Mode. Because here's how disruptive Hyper Mode is. Not only will it attack itself sometimes, but it takes a one whole turn in which you were expecting it to launch a maneuver for it to tell you it's in Hyper Mode. So in that time that you could have been attacking your foe, you're losing health, and now your Pokemon has gone crazy. So purify, people. Just purify. It's the way to go. And besides that, who wouldn't want to visit this beautiful underground grotto? With a whole forest underneath, might I add. Very strange biome structures they got going on here. There's a Gate village on the top of the cliff, and then underneath the mountain there's a whole forest. Very strange, since it looks like it's all completely open. It's like walking through that doorway of Shadow Purification area with some sort of dimension portal. You're not in Ore anymore. Oh, wonderful. We've got Quagsire on our side. This guy has been shipping around with us for quite some time. It's nice to have him purified. Look at how happy he is. Open heart and all. The one thing I would note to add for future Shadow Pokemon development, if there was another Shadow game to come out, I would want the Shadow Aura to be so potent and so evil that it's hard to not notice it. And so players themselves wouldn't need Chi or some kind of tool to see the Shadow Pokes. It's just that the evil team at the time, whatever that would be, had figured out how to power them up so much that they emit this horrible ghastly aura, so they actually look like evil Shadow types. Because in the sequel of this, there's one Shadow Pokemon, Lugia, that actually fully shows its Shadow form. And you understand, it's dark. I think that would be so badass if, you know, they didn't have a full reskin of the texture, but at least had some dark aura. So you're only able to leave one Pokemon there at a time, and I forgot, Skiploom was ready to be purified as well, otherwise I wouldn't have walked away from the purification zone, the relic. But one at a time is what you'll be able to do with the daycare center there. Like I mentioned before, no breeding, just Shadow... Oh, evolution! And 2 evolutions, 1 episode. Excellent. And Mr. Poof, welcome. Thank you for making the generational gap from 2nd Gen Crystal to Colosseum in 3rd Gen. That's really not possible, but at least we have an embodiment of what Mr. Poof was in my Crystal walkthrough. Ah, the memories! But it will detach your Pokemon from the Shadow Meter that it has if you drop them off in daycare, and that's a good thing, because that's sort of like having 7 slots of Pokemon to take care of, except 1 slot is out of your hands, making the full team of 6 for Mount Battle free for whatever you need. And what I believe we'll be doing, since there are going to be numerous
non-important battles on this episode. We'll fast forward it, and I'll switch up my team so that we can get more shadows purified. I'm going to go with this method for a couple of episodes, and we're going to see how effective it is compared to the simple walk in a circle around Phoenix City purification method, because I've seen both online argued which is easier, which is harder, and there are in fact charts that tell you, depending on the Pokemon's nature, it will be easier to purify them based on battling or giving them aromatherapy, which I didn't even show that off yet, but that's something else you can do in Agate Village. Once you have Pokemon at a level purifiable, you can take them to the Relic Zone, or if you want them to be more mitigated down to purity, you could give them aromatherapy from that mart. And that shop in Ore is the only place that you can get the fragrances. I think you'd need a cologne case, and off the top of my head, I'm not sure where that is. That's why I skipped it for now. But we'll go back when we're doing the long run of purifications, and I mean it's going to be a long run. Because, yes, some Pokemon become purified faster over time by battling, but if Remoraid, for example, is one of these pokes, there's not a whole lot I can do, because it's at level 20. Most of the pokes we face at this point are going to be 30s or above, and I don't feel like going to spam around in lower areas, which I'm not even sure are accessible at this time. I don't know if there's lower than 30s trainers to verse at this point, or if we've beat them all. And don't think you can take these pokes back to Phoenix City, at least not the shadow pokes. You gotta wait until they're purified, because Phoenix City has strict rules on which enter the stadium, and Chi won't let you bring the dark types in. So you're gonna have to bring them to Mount Battle. Mount Battle is a beautiful way to purify a Pokemon quickly, but it's long, it's drawn out, and it's certainly not as swift as this sped up battle has been. Yeah, in truth, I think this whole episode would be over 40 minutes long if we let it be at the regular pace that it is. And you can see the action. You understand what's going on. I'm kicking ass! And de-shadowing pokes. And it's nice because once we get to the next final boss, it's not the final boss, but the final boss of this area, I know, it's pretty incredible, back-to-back bosses. We just took out Mirror B, I felt, and now we're already having to deal with a new boss. Well, we will in the next episode. But for that guy, you're going to want to bring no shadow Pokemon. Yeah, I made that error about like 3 takes, and it did not work out well for me. Because Hyper Mode happens at the least expected point, and usually at a pivotal time when you need them to pwn your foe, not get into Hyper Mode and be called. It takes a whole turn for it just to tell you that they're hyperactive. Then a whole other turn to call them back and calm them down so they could use some other moves without worry of them damaging themselves. It's a mess, and it's best to avoid by just purifying all the ones you want to bring into battle beforehand. So, say you want to do Remoraid for whatever reason. I'm picking on him because he's got the fullest of the Shadow Meter, and he has a very, very pitiful level of 20. I really don't know what you're going to do with that, other than transfer it to your GBA games. But say you did want to use him, a good way to ensure that you would be able to take advantage of him in this upcoming battle with the next boss is by walking around in a circle. Phoenix City is a perfect place for that, thanks to the waterfall and that other dude running around with his cast form. Little did I know when I saw cast form chasing that guy that he would be giving us an inkling to the perfect way to purify most pokes. Now this nature business, of which I'm not sure which episode I'm going to bring the chart into play, but I will, so you know what works best for which nature, or you could Google it yourselves if you're dying to know now. But the only way you can tell what nature a Pokemon is if you diminish their shadow bar by a certain amount. And now, I'm not certain if it's the same for all, but I think it's at least one of the chunks of shadow bar completely removed. So that's already taking some considerable time to either battle with that one or walk around for a while. So no matter which way you cut it, you're going to have to grind a tad if you're going to complete this game 100% like me and purify all the shadows. But what I can recommend is putting on a playlist of one of my favorable walkthroughs. Maybe you could laugh with Vlad Z while you're watching Minecraft and rolling your joystick back and forth to heal your shadows. I personally had to catch up on Yu Yu Hakusho, the anime, so I just watched that season 1 through 4 all over again, and by the end of that, what do you know? All my Pokemon were ready to be purified, so that's damn, I guess I told you the method I do choose eventually, but I'll show you why. I'll show you why. It takes a long time, you know, and it's not great when the game doesn't give you wild Pokemon to go up against and verse for your weaker shadows like Remoraid here. Remoraid's gotta be pure too, but he does not pwn all. So it's nice when we come against rock and ground types like this, where he can, oops, kinda show his stuff, except hold on to 1 hit point. Yeah, Remoraid doesn't do much in this fight because, oh, look at that, he killed himself. He doesn't even have 1 water-type move. And that's what I'm talking about. How does the game expect you to get a grasp on purifying these pokes when they're so pitifully weak, and you can't clear anything because you don't have moves to use against them? So, despite you knowing what their nature is, and maybe they like to battle, maybe they're brawlers. If they're weak brawlers, and nature is a random event in the game, keeps your version unique every time you reset a file, then you just don't have an option sometimes. Bada botch, he's poached. Ooh, dual trap pinch. That's trouble for Slugma. Not Furet. Furet's good like that. Maybe not. He's pissed off. He's like, you destroyed Slugma. I'll have vengeance. Or jump around and get called and de-shadowatized. That too. Ooh, a Lileap. You know, you just don't see the ancient pokes around as much as I think you should. You know, when I get back into EV training, my own metagame team, and not just making sets for Planet Poke, I'd love to make an Ancients team of all the ancient pokes and see if they would actually coordinate well with each other. One of the first things I guess I should look at is, are they even in the same tier together? Because if one's in OU and the other one's in UU and some are in NU, then that's no good. But in the next episode, we will continue on fighting strong, take on the next 5 challengers, and the boss that lies at the end.